Inspired by the classic Resident Evil and Alone in the Dark games, the teams at Dual Effect and Abstract Digital released Tormented Souls on most platforms last year. Switch players need not to wait any longer to embark on a trip into the nightmarish corridors of the Winterlake Mansion. Is it an experience to die for, or best left alone in the dark? Stick around to find out. A massive thanks to P-Cube for the review copy. Please subscribe and all that jazz. And now, let's go. Hell waits for no one. Caroline Walker kept having nightmares after receiving a letter. Its contents, a photo of twins and a message. Do you think you can just simply abandon us here? Caroline explores the terrifying halls of an abandoned mansion on the hunt for missing twin girls and trying to survive this hellish place. From the get-go, the game does not hold back. There is gore, mutilated and dismembered bodies and supernatural events that unfold during the playthrough. It's refreshing to see a contemporary attempt at the classic Resident Evil games, which, let's face it, went from survival horror to an action movie starring Chris Redfield punching a boulder. Many thanks to the developers for making me feel scared whilst playing a horror game, which is hard to achieve in an industry where most of everything has been tried. Being a survival horror, the protagonist must ration ammo and health items while solving fiendish but satisfying puzzles. What really makes the tension rise during one's playthrough is the fixed, abstract camera angles, which may hide hellish creatures around the corner. If that one's bad enough, you cannot be left in a dark room for too long, otherwise you'll die. I learned that the lighter I carried was probably the most important item in my ever-expanding arsenal. The tension is amplified when you enter a pitch black room and there's an abomination coming at you. If you bring out your weapon, you'll literally be left in the dark, which isn't good either. There is some strategy to how enemies are approached and dealt with in this game. It is best to run around and light any candles you find along the way. This will free your hands so the enemy can be disposed of. Combat here is easy to grasp thanks to the auto-locking system, allowing the protagonist to aim at her assailant even when not in the camera shot. Ranged weapons can be reloaded via the menu, which is a tip that will spare you some long tense animations. Controls work well with having somewhat tank mechanics when moving the character, but a lot less cumbersome as the game is trying to portray. The item management is pretty straightforward and has been streamlined to remain open whilst carrying out a puzzle. This helps the pacing of the game, as having to go into a menu, select what you need, and then come back out and use it can be an awkward experience that affects the fluidity of the gameplay. Saving the game requires you to use tape reels, which are finite, meaning that you'll have to be careful and clever on how far you progress before using them. Annoyingly, I experienced a couple of crashes whilst playing, which meant I had to redo some sections of the game. I did contact P-Cube and they were looking into it, so hopefully it'll get resolved before the game comes out. I really enjoyed the game as it captured the essence of classic 3D horror games. Although the developers have used some of the staple mechanics and tropes, they have done so by using the right amount in the right way. This means that certain aspects that help amplify the stress and fear into the player, such as fixed cameras or the controls, have been slightly enhanced for today's audience. My only critique is that the lighter may have benefited for being mapped on a vacant button, seeing as it's probably the most used item. Right, first things first, let's get this out of the way. The voice acting is terrible. So much so, it's somewhat funny. The protagonist reminds me of Alice in Wonderland to an extent, where there are outrageous things occurring around her, yet she comes across slightly dubious to this fact. She is too calm for someone who's woken up in a bathtub missing an eye. It's very reminiscent of B-horror movies, and it works.
What the hell is going on here?
My child, you are pale. What happened to you?
A person in a wheelchair with knives in his hands was chasing me.
Oh, it's you. Don't you remember me? I'm the town priest. We met here in the chapel only a couple of days ago.
What? I'm sorry. I don't remember you. I certainly don't remember coming here before.
I see. Perhaps I'm mistaken. I'm old and get confused every now and again.
The music does help increase the tension during certain sections of the game, whilst the sound of scraping metal produced by the enemy really keeps you on your toes. The enemies' screams and grunts are as disturbing as their physique, and hearing them wail their last breath upon death soon becomes a chilling sound of respite for the player. Although the character models may seem very outdated, the developers have put all of the efforts into the lighting and shadow effects, which is a crucial part of this game. The use of dynamic shadow is pretty impressive, and the mansion also becomes another character in the story. With rooms filled with cadavers covered by bloodstained sheets or dank, dark basement corridors, a lot of effort has gone into bringing the scenery to life as much as the characters within. The enemies are truly bizarre and horrendous to encounter. These abominations lack any humanity in them and will chase after you in hopes of slashing you to ribbons. The design somewhat reminds me of movies such as Hellraiser, where some of the victims were brutally tortured and disfigured. The map is a helpful tool and the rooms are clearly named. The font can be a tad small, but it does the job. While it may lack in visual fidelity and resolution, it gains in presenting to the player an abandoned building with enough detail to make it stand out. Rather than going for photorealistic assets, the developers have created this 3D environment from the ground up. No room feels safe until it's been inspected fully, and its wreckage of litter and blood makes you question what the hell happened in here. There were odd frame drops, but nothing detrimental to the gameplay. Being a massive fan of the GameCube version of Resident Evil, my expectations were kept in check for this review. I have truly been surprised at the content of this game. It can be slightly rough around the edges, especially in the voice acting and character model department, but they get a lot of things right, using all the staple mechanics that jump-started the 3D horror genre back in 1996, albeit fine-tuning it so it creates a far more enjoyable experience overall. I'm glad to have this game in my collection, and I truly hope to see the development teams as well as P-Cube work on more games like this. If you're a fan of these kind of games, I strongly recommend it. The game can be downloaded from the eShop for £16.99 or your original equivalent, and will require 8.7 gigabytes to download. Physical collectors, you'll be happy to know that the game can be obtained in a limited edition capacity from Funstock's website, and it includes a Sun and Moon coin as well as a hospital map. If you're like me, you've been waiting for a new horror game that plays similarly to the original Resident Evil games, then this will do the job just fine. 8 out of 10, hell yeah. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, like, all that jazz. Hopefully I'll be getting more reviews coming in. Let me know what you think of this game. Have you played it before? Are you excited about the announcement and the release of this particular game on the Switch? Stay safe, everyone. Keep the lights on and keep on gaming. Peace.